has officially taken the wheel. The media attention has ramped up significantly, and it's almost time for the unveiling of Leo Messi. Hello and hola to everyone y todos. Welcome back to Miami Total Football Radio, the number one and most listened to Inter-Miami focused podcast that has been listened to in 50 countries and counting. It is here where the beautiful game collides with passion and analysis as we provide you with all the latest team news, opinions, inside information, general punditry, and much more via a team of seasoned South Florida-based reporters. This is also a bilingual show, so you will hear Spanish phrases, terms, frases throughout the course of the podcast. Now, there are now 4 of us on this show, but only 3 made it this week. But it should be an interesting dynamic because it's not the usual 3. We've got a new trio on this week's podcast. First time that the 3 of us have done a show together, so I'm curious to see how it all goes. So joining me, one of the usual, I would say faces, but we're not on video yet, so voices, is Andrea Yanez, aka Ajicita. We'll start with you. Andrea, how are you doing today?
Hello, Franco. I'm doing good. Ready to get rolling. Ready to get on this Messi train that we are riding and have been riding since a couple of weeks ago.
Well, joining us on the Messi train. By the way, is there a conductor to the Messi train? I don't know, Andrea. You said that you didn't think it was happening not too long ago, and I said from the jump I thought there was a real good chance. So maybe I'm the conductor. Anyway, also joining us on this week's episode for his second appearance as a member of Miami Total Football Radio is Simon Evans. Simon, I still will not yet ask you to roll your R's like that, but I will ask you how you're doing on this Thursday night. We're recording a little bit later than usual, but that's because it was a busy week. So how are things going?
Things are great, Franco. Yes, thank you for having me on again. And hi, Andrea. And I've been working on my rolling my R's, so we'll do that sometime. But not quite yet.
You've got to get your feet underneath you, Messi style. He's warming up, gearing up, practicing, getting all the
rondos. Yeah, I need to do a few rondos.
Hey! Not bad. But look, it's been a hectic week. It's been a busy week for us, covering the team, covering the Messi mania, the Messi madness, and I'm sure for all the listeners and fans at home that have been following along intently with every development regarding the Argentine superstar. So, of course, that is going to make up the bulk of this week's show. We are going to talk about the last 3 days since Messi touched down in South Florida, what's happened, what we've seen, the sights, the scenes, everything that's gone on over the past few days in the lead up to Sunday's official presentation. Of course, we have to touch on the most recent game. We'll do so a little bit later on in the pod, which was the draw on the road against DC United. And of course, we'll preview this weekend's game against St. Louis City SC. So, a lot to talk about. I know Andrea and Simon, gotta get used to that, are both pressed on time today. So, we won't waste any more time. Let's get to it. All right. Jumping straight into it, Lionel Messi has arrived. He is in South Florida. He landed at Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport on Tuesday to a good bit of fanfare and a whole lot of media attention. There was a Telemundo helicopter in the skies above Drive Pink Stadium not long after Messi landed. Telemundo was probably trying to get an image from up above, although I don't think they had any luck. There was a few media that turned out to see, myself included, if Messi would pop up out of the training facility, but alas, he did not. The only thing that was seen on Tuesday with regards to Messi was that he and his family got off the plane. There was an image from afar from, if I'm not mistaken, ESPN in Argentina and TY Sports, as it would be called in English, which is also an Argentine outlet. They got the exclusive images, which I know some other media members were not too happy about. But nonetheless, the important news is that Messi arrived on Tuesday. So before we get to Wednesday and Thursday, let's do this in chronological order. I will start with Andrea, who has seniority on the podcast. Andrea, what are your thoughts on Messi's arrival? Him touching down on Tuesday. There were fans in attendance outside of Drive Pink Stadium, celebrating the news and cheering. So what did you just think of the overall setup there on Tuesday?
Well, I just wish the team or the supporters would have known something in advance, because they were fans, but they were not like hundreds of fans waiting for him in the airport like you usually expect when a player like this arrives. So that was kind of disappointing in that aspect, because it could have been better, but I understand that they are waiting for their event, their unveil, and their show that they're going to do on Sunday. So I kind of understand that. But it is a glimpse of what is to come now, of Inter Miami. Inter Miami really doesn't matter. All that matters now is Lionel Messi. And since Tuesday, that has been the case.
It's been, right, like all the talk, even when we had the scrum on Wednesday, which we'll get to, was just mostly about Messi, right? Like, it's like an afterthought that Inter Miami has a game this weekend. Like, for most people, it's just all Messi. It's all Messi. And again, we will talk mostly Messi because that is the news of the day, the news of the week. But we're also going to talk about the game, because there is a game to be played and there is a team that's going to be playing that game. It's not just all about one player, even if he is arguably the greatest of all time. Simon, your thoughts on how Tuesday played out with Messi touching down? Do you share Andrea's sentiment that it's a bit disappointing? Or is it understandable given that Inter Miami is trying to probably keep the madness to a minimum with regards to Leo?
Well, I don't know. Are they? I mean, I think it would have been brilliant images of Messi arriving even at an executive airport, and at least having 60, 100 fans there with flags and banners and chanting, and it projects some enthusiasm from the fan base, doesn't it? Rather than him and his family walking across and sort of being ferried away a little bit sneakily, really, to avoid media attention or whatever. And fans have been at the stadium from pretty early on in the morning, from what I understand, and they were obviously disappointed he didn't do what we all thought he was going to do, which was go for that really short journey from the executive airport to the stadium. Doesn't seem to have happened, or if it did, it was done in a really sneaky way that nobody could spot it. So it's a pity, really. I mean, I suppose, he hadn't signed the contract yet. You don't want some situation where, something gets too messy there or whatever. No pun intended.
No pun intended.
It's going to happen all the time, that, isn't it? But it's I mean, he arrived. I mean, it just shows what, how big a name he is and what a big deal this is when, somebody we all knew was coming. He was obviously going to arrive in the country at some stage, but it was still news when as he landed on American soil. That tells you how big he is and how big this story is.
And he and his family were coming from the Bahamas from vacationing. So Messi's sporting a nice little reddish tan there. And yes, you could see that they were in, summer gear, shorts, beach t-shirts, at least for Messi's part. They got off the plane, and literally the images, the video that the two media outlets that I mentioned before got were 10 seconds long? It wasn't all that much. And it was the same image for both channels, which to me leads me to believe that was distributed to them. But that's just my sensation. Look, for me, I think it's clear that they are trying to minimize, at least until Sunday, as much of Messi Mania as possible, right? Because otherwise, like you said, he would land in one of the international airports, like Miami International or Florida, Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood Airport. But he didn't. He landed at the Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport, which, yes, logistically speaking, is right next to Drive Pink Stadium, so that makes sense. But with the way that we heard, and I know you had colleagues on the ground there, Simon, that had to deal with the blocking off of certain sections, I mean, clearly they didn't want a whole lot of attention on Messi's arrival, right? Like, the only images that came out are like a 10-second video of him walking towards a car. So to me, it's clear that Inter Miami was trying to manage that. Now, with regards to Tuesday, let's stay on Tuesday here because there were fans there. And a bulk of the fans that were there chanting and doing interviews with the different channels that started appearing. I got there around 2 o'clock. Like we had heard early in the day that Messi was probably going to arrive or that he was arriving at some point that day. We just didn't know exactly what time. So I made my way over to Drive Pink Stadium around 2:30. He had already touched down, I believe, at 1:30, if I'm not mistaken. And there were already fans there, like you mentioned, Simon. But the bulk of the fans were part of this new, I don't even know if you can call it supporters group, because they're not supporting a team, they're supporting a player. I guess that could still be a supporters group. And it was...
Fan club. They're a fan club.
Well, they are called Messias 305. And they say outwardly that they are Leo Messi fans, that they are a Leo Messi fan club. And they made up, again, the majority of the fans that turned out, which understandably so. There wasn't any official announcement or any details in the press about when Messi was arriving beforehand. It was in the middle of a work day, so understandably so. But as the day went on and time passed, more and more news channels started popping up. More and more media outlets started popping up. Channel 6, Channel 4 was already there when I got there, but Channel 6 got there later on. And some of the Latin channels and Latin media outlets came out later on, and I saw the same interview with Messias 305 happen like I don't know how many times, at least half a dozen times. So there's been some talk out there, especially from non-Inter Miami fans, about the perception of having a supporters group or a fan club that is just about one player. But nonetheless, it's good to see. To me, it's good to see some enthusiasm about his arrival. It's good to see more excitement, and if that means more people will turn out to games, then absolutely that's a positive for Inter Miami. It's up to Inter Miami to make those fans, or as many of those fans as possible, stick around for the longer term after Leo Messi's eventual departure as a player for this team. Anything you want to add there, Andrea? Because you had a little sinister laugh with regards to Messias 305.
No, it's because I've gotten messages from people that are in the supporters group that were upset with that. Because, listen, let's face the reality. People that come to the stadium, like Orlando fans, Austin fans, and some fans that are visiting supporters that traveled to Inter Miami, online, they had made fun of the team using speakers, using fake ambience in the stadium, and we're saying that Miami fans were plastic fans, like everything else in Miami, right? So this is going to add to that. But listen, it makes me laugh, but it will create culture here in the United States, because it will really create that rivalry between the supporter groups. So when you have people that really support the club and they see this, I guess they get bothered, because some people don't care, but the supporters are bothered by watching that, because you come out and say that you really don't care about what happened to a team. You just care about what Messi is doing. It's a little bit uncomfortable. So I've gotten messages of people saying, I hope they don't try to sit in the supporter section.
Well, I mean, that's definitely, there's definitely that sentiment out there from some people in the other supporters groups, like, hey, we've been here from the beginning and you're just popping up because Messi's here. So there is some of that sentiment. Listen, if it's all for the same cause in the end, I think it'll all work itself out. I think it'll be ironed out. But we'll see. It's definitely something that other fans of other teams who may or may not be envious that Messi is in South Florida with Inter Miami, they've poked fun at and been like, oh, that it's cringe. I saw a lot of that sentiment on the post that I shared on Twitter at Franco Panizo. If you don't follow me there, you can do so, and you can see some of the videos, some of the images, some of the chants that took place there on Tuesday. Also, something that I saw on Tuesday that I also shared is the stand in the, southeast corner. That has gone up. That has gone up. Andrea's just laughing all over the place on this podcast. So that stand is up. Now, I don't think it's complete. So, to be fair, right? Because I took video from the outside.
It's missing the seat.
Well, so the stand is there. The stand is up. It has been erected. Now, I was able to get my hands on some images from the inside of the venue. Now, I did not walk into the inside of the venue. Was not allowed to do so. But I did get my hands on some photos from the inside of Drive Pink Stadium and what that northeast corner looks like right now. Like Andrea said, the seats are missing. So right now you just see, like a blank sheet. A big white opening surrounded by some fences for the stands. That's also gotten some attention. That's also gotten some criticism because people think it looks tacky or poor or cheap. Again, the caveat is that it's not completed yet, right? When the images that came out, they're not yet. Those aren't the stands in its totality and its completion. I'm not going to compare it to the Mona Lisa, but it's like if a painting was halfway done. Don't really know exactly what it'll look like. We have an idea. And then I go back to you because you laughed. Simon, you did not laugh, so I'll go to you next. But Andrea, what are your thoughts? Why are you laughing about those stands?
Because Franco, let's be real, they look awful. They look awful, and they are tickets that are $250 right now. And you're practically in a corner. One thing about the stadium that I really like is that it doesn't matter where you sit. You can watch the game, and you can have, it doesn't matter if you had a $100 ticket in this before Messi era, or you had a $4 ticket in this Messi era. You could see the game from every seat in the stadium and watch it properly. From these corners, I don't know what kind of view will you have. So I really understand people that were laughing, especially fans outside from the U.S. because they expected Inter Miami to be that big team, Beckham's team, to have a stadium like Hard Rock. And many people have asked me from outside the U.S., like, why don't they play a Hard Rock? Why isn't the stadium as Hard Rock? And they don't really understand that it's a temporary stadium. So I understand all the criticism, but I guess the positive thing here is that the team is finding a solution. Listen, they couldn't go to Hard Rock. They had a concert, and they cannot go after this week also because the next week there's a Beyonce concert, so they cannot go and play there. And then the Dolphins, it's not happening. Unless it's a cup game, it's not happening. People need to forget about Hard Rock because it's not happening. So the positive thing here is that the team made it happen, found a solution. It's not the best, but it's the solution that they have available in this moment because there's really no other possibility because they cannot go to Hard Rock.
So you touched on an interesting element there that I don't think we've talked about on this pod enough, and I think it's time to do so a little bit. And that's that there are now worldwide eyeballs on this team, which we knew was coming, right? That's not the part we haven't talked about. But from our seats as media members, who are now in the hub of what is probably the most interesting team in the world right now, what has been the outside perception that you've gotten? Simon, this one goes to you. Andrea just touched on it a little bit, right? Because Andrea, I'm sure you're talking to a lot of Latin American media. I'm sure you're talking to a lot of Honduran media that's asking and then it's inquiring about Inter Miami, and it's laying their eyes on the stadium and the training facility and the team and the roster, for the first time in their careers and in their lives. I expect the same is true for you, Simon, but with people across the pond in Europe, probably most notably over there in England. So, Simon, what has been the response, or what have you discussed with some colleagues about the whole thing as more and more people are tuning in to Inter Miami and its surroundings?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, actually, most of the people I've spoken to have been from continental Europe about it rather than England, to be honest. But I think that the general feeling is that Messi's gone to a retirement league. He's gone for a final payday. He's going to exploit his commercial opportunities in America for a couple of years before he hangs up his boots. and the football shouldn't be taken too seriously. Unfortunately, that is the impression a lot of people have, because when people in the US talk about how much MLS has developed in terms of the quality of football and so on, I think there's no doubt that's absolutely true. As I said last time, I was away for 5 years back in England and came back, and I didn't watch a lot of MLS during that 5 years. And I really can notice the difference now that the quality of football is much, much better. But most people don't know that, right? They're not watching it. They're watching their own leagues. They're watching games in their own time zone, obviously. So there is that kind of negative view about it. And we know how the world is these days, especially with social media, Twitter, and so on, that people will leap on things that confirm their prejudices, right? So if the stadium looks like a rickety temporary stadium with a little bit of seating borrowed from the F1 track at Hard Rock stuck in the corner of the ground, then people are going to laugh at that if it looks like it. I don't think it'll look that bad when it's full of people, actually, because it doesn't matter what it looks like when it's empty, really, does it? It's what it looks like when the place is full of fans. From that point of view, I would just say about the stadium that they've got to get it right from the offset. There's no teething problems. Oh, it's only his first game. No, you've got to get it right from the offset, because people are paying big money for these tickets, and we know what this town is like. If they go there and they don't get to see the venue properly, they can't park their car properly, there's confusion with security, they can't get a drink or food because the queues are too big, or whatever problems. Right?
We need to translate the queues line, because I didn't know what that meant
the lines. Sorry,
the lines. Hey, no, listen. When I went to London,
look, it's a cosmopolitan podcast. People get that.
Hey, I don't. Hey, listen.
Yeah, Franco, I got it.
Hey, listen. If I had not gone to England, I would not know what queues are. But anyway, I digress. Sorry,
okay,
Simon.
Lines. Okay. So people in Miami, if they're not happy with what they get for their $250, they're not going to come back again. Not only are they not going to come back again, they're going to moan and bitch to all their friends everywhere, and soon it becomes a thing that, like, oh, they brought Messi here, but the stadium's a disaster. I mean, it's already difficult that it's out in Fort Lauderdale, right? Much as I like Fort Lauderdale, much as I actually quite like that area, because I've watched lots of football there before, as we all have. But for a lot of people, the people who are going to be spending $300 to travel up from Miami to watch it, you've got to give them a top-class experience. And there is a risk there, without worrying what people around the rest of the world see, because that's going to be on TV, right? And you can make anything look pretty good on TV. I mean, I've been watching cricket from Texas this evening. It looks really, really good on TV. I'm sure if I was at the stadium, it wouldn't be quite a top-class experience, but it looks just like watching top-class cricket from anywhere in the world, because you can do that with the magic of TV. So I think that part, the international part, it'll look fine. Is the service going to be up to scratch for what people expect? That's a big question.
So I think what both of you touched on there, the key word is temporary, right? This is not Inter Miami's long-term home. This is a venue.
Well, for Messi, it will be.
It will be for most of
2 years.
For most of his stay.
Right, exactly.
It's going to be Messi's home. Let's be real.
And I get that for people who are used to seeing him play in first world or first-rate facilities, they can be taken aback by where he's going to be playing, because it's not up to the same standard. But that's because this stadium is temporary. The stadium that they're planning to build in Miami, that the work is supposed to begin soon, that will be Inter Miami's permanent home, and that should have all the bells and whistles and look, aesthetically much more pleasing. Inter Miami's making do.
2025, right?
2025. Projected summer to fall of 2025. Inter Miami's making do with what they've got. It's not ideal, but it is what it is. I would say this. Andrea, you touched on the point that I think is the most. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but the most pertinent part is those seats will come with a pretty decent price, right? They're not going to be $5 tickets. The sightlines from those seats need to be as good as they can possibly make them. Because, people are going to spend their hard-earned cash to watch the game, to see Messi. And if, the sightlines are obstructed or you can't really see parts of the field because of, it's on a corner, essentially, then that's not great. So hopefully, from that standpoint, the team has figured out so that everyone that sits in those stands can get a full view of the game. Obviously from an angle, but can get a full view of the game. Imagine not being able to see one corner of the field. I don't know. I haven't been there, but that's just one thing that you hope is the case, that everyone can see the full field, because they'll be paying a pretty penny to sit there. Anyway, all right. Moving on to Wednesday, we attended training. The three of us, as well as Jose Armando, the other member of this lovely team, but he is not here in the house this week. It was a bit of a different practice. A lot more media attention, a completely different check-in setup. Simon, you haven't been around all that much in terms of regularly attending practices. So, Andrea, I will ask you this question, because we've gone regularly for the past 3 seasons and change. What was the normal setup for us attending a standard Inter-Miami practice?
Okay. First of all, I'm going to start with the first thing. No roadblocks. No roadblocks. I tried to get in by the entrance in 15th Street, the entrance that I've used all the 4 years that we've been covering this team. And it was blocked. And they told me that I had to go and go in by the other side. So that was the first thing. Then I didn't get this, but then they blocked the entrance to the parking lot where media was supposed to park, and had people there checking in if you had checked in before or you had RSVP'd before to go to practice. And they were checking each one. Then they made us wait outside. We couldn't be by the gate as we usually used to wait, or spying around there. We had to, I that arrived very early, I had to wait in my car, because security came by and told me that I had to wait in my car and that I couldn't film, I couldn't get out my phone or get out my camera or do anything, because I was being watched. And if I did anything, I would be escorted out premises and my credential would be taken away.
So you couldn't do your job, essentially. Okay.
Yes, at least until we got in the time that we were supposed to get in.
Which is kind of
okay,
which is kind of silly.
yeah.
I don't know about that. I think that's kind of silly. I think it's kind of silly because
well, to get official pictures, well, yes, but if they are expecting everyone is going to abide by those rules, they are crazy. Because listen, when he trains for the first time, media that does not get a credential, they will bring an escalator and climb, put it in the street that is a public street that they cannot close, and get pictures. They will find a way. But for people that were there, they were very strict. They had a guard in every corner, in every gate. And then they made us wait outside, and then they checked us in one by one, checked our bags. Well, it was really different. Then we had the gates that we couldn't go through. No, the gates, the barricades. I don't know how to say it in English. Las rejas, those things. I don't know how to say it in English. The fence, the fence that were blocking you from certain point to get to the field. So, it was quite different. It was quite different, and it was the first time. Many people were frustrated, especially people that had been going from before. Like before, we didn't have to go through all of that.
Well, so that was the question, Andrea. You painted the picture of what it was like Wednesday. The question was, what was it like before for us practice OGs, us old timers that have gone to practice since day one? What has it normally been like? It's easy, right? You just drive up to the parking lot. You walk up to the gate. A member of the PR team that knows us is there. They open the gate. There's 3 to 5 of us at most on a regular practice. And we walk over to the field. There's no barricades. We can even walk onto not the grass, that the fields are on, but the grass next to the fields. And we can get close and take pictures and images. But this was a completely different setup, right? There was, like you mentioned, there's barricades in terms of, just being able to drive and get around logistically. Once you got to the parking lot, a member of the PR staff in the heat of that Wednesday morning, with a tablet, was doing a check-in of sorts. Once you got the approval, you parked. By the time I got there, it was still about 10 minutes before we were supposed to get in, which that got pushed back another 20 minutes. Everyone was already out of their cars and media members were talking. Afterwards, once they said, all right, you guys can come in, they opened the gates, and there was now a...
Stampede.
I don't know. Well, I don't know if there's this... I was going to say screening process, but there was a further check-in via credentials or a name checklist from other members of the communication staff. After that, there was a security check that checked your bag, if you had a bag. If you didn't, all the same, they did like a, what do they call it? A metal detector, like a wand, checking, make sure you have no metal. After that, then you could enter. Oh, wait, nope, almost forgot. Then, once you cleared all that, you got a wristband. After that wristband was put on you, then you could walk towards the area where we normally stand for practice, although the caveat is that there were barricades, metal barricades, that you couldn't pass to separate us from getting too close to the team. So, which is understandable. Completely get it. No, not making any complaints, at least on my end. I'm sure there'll be things that they'll adjust and tweak to expedite the process. There were some people that were frustrated that they were in the back of the line and had to wait.
No, to tell you the truth, Franco, it was very bad. They had us waiting for more than 40 minutes in the sun with no water, with no tent, with not anything. If they didn't, they have to plan for media attention to get better, because we cannot be waiting in that heat without any water, without any shade in that moment.
It was the first day.
Figure out.
It was the first day of school. They'll make adjustments. They'll tweak it.
They will, Franco. You're right. I'm sure, and it was frustrating. And it was very hot, but I'm sure they'll make adjustments. But also, that was still a pretty small turnout comparative to what it's going to be like, right?
So that was the question I had for you guys, right? Because we've painted the picture. There was definitely more significant media turnout. Joseph Martinez, when I asked him, he's like, "Oh, it's a big change." Roughly how many media members would you say were there? Simon?
I tried to think of it. I mean, I was going around 60, something like that.
Yeah, I think that sounds fair. Maybe a little bit less, and somewhere in that 50 to 60 range. Andrea, would you agree? Do you think there was a little bit less, a little bit more?
Yeah, maybe 60 people.
Sounds about right. In the 50 to 60 range, I think.
And how many are going to be there on Tuesday when he does his open training session?
Well,
more.
gotta get there early. All right, guys. So all three of us and Jose, Andrea. I know you guys know this, but make sure you're not late for whatever reason, because otherwise you're going to be waiting for a pretty second. With regards to practice, Messi wasn't there in the 15 minutes that we were allotted before the interviews. David Beckham was there, watching from the sideline, kicking the ball here or there, posing for a picture, not so subtly, but it was not too eventful in terms of what was happening in front of us. Now, that being said, I reported this on Twitter. I was informed by sources that Messi did attend that practice session, that he met some of the players, that he was in the training gear. He was accompanied by his sons. I heard they even did the welcoming tunnel where they, in other parts of the world, they hit you a little bit harder. In the United States, they kind of just give you a little love tap. Not even a love tap, but even softer than a love tap, as you run through like a tunnel of players. So I heard that happened. Now, when the interviews were taking place, both Joseph Martinez and Drake Callender said they had not met Messi yet, which... Again, I'll stick by my reporting. I'll stick by my sources. He was there, and he definitely had met some players.
I can back your reporting up. Also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you. All right. Because I know some people were like, well, where are the images? If he was there, how come there's no pictures? Again, to reiterate, Andrea made it clear that media was instructed not to take images aside from the 15 minutes that we were allotted to enter the practice facility. So... that's why you didn't see images. And we can go into the big reasons why Inter Miami would do such a thing. I'll just say it very quickly. It's 2023. Inter Miami, like all sports teams and sports franchises, wants to maximize the content it's going to produce, right? They want to be the first ones to put out the Messi in a team practice jersey picture, right? They want to be the first ones up to get all the eyeballs. Because if we do that, then that takes away from what people are going to look at their channel eventually. So that's part of it. I also heard that since he hadn't officially signed the contract, at least in terms of the public sense, that they're not able to use his image or his likeness yet. So those are elements at play there. Nonetheless, it was an eventful turnout. We talked to the players about it. We talked about how much it takes away from the focus. Because again, there is a game to be played this weekend. Simon, how many of the questions were about Messi to both Joseph Martinez and Drake Callender, the two players that spoke on Wednesday morning?
Yeah, Drake got a couple of questions about the game, didn't he? But overwhelming. It was overwhelmingly, I don't know what it was, like 80-90% Messi questions. And there were people there who were there just to do a Messi story, so I don't blame them,
No, absolutely. Listen, I'm not criticizing any media member that has, focusing on Messi. But from a team standpoint, right, like from the player standpoint, all the questions are essentially about Messi. I threw in a couple about St. Louis and the matchup because there is a game to be played there, and do need to get some insight into that. But I do think it makes it hard as a player to focus when you have all this hoopla surrounding you.
They're not used to it, are they? They're not
absolutely.
Used to it.
And Joseph touched on that. Joseph touched on that when I asked him in Spanish, because he said, maybe he said in English actually when I asked him in English, but he said some of the younger players are in shock because they've never seen anything like that, right? And this is just a sign of what's to come. So, Andrea, what are your thoughts on how the team has to approach this, right? From an Inter-Miami standpoint, how do they have to approach focusing, not only for this weekend, but just in the general sense? Because when Messi arrives, again, there's going to be more media presence, there's going to be more distractions, there's going to be more talk on social media. This is definitely going to make them have to dial in and really, really, really focus and concentrate on the task at hand rather than a lot of the outside noise that, yes, we, as media members, help create. So, Andrea, from a team standpoint, what do they have to do to help block out that noise and focus?
Well, it's gonna be part of Tata's job to do that, especially with a team as young, also a team that is going through all these changes and also having to say goodbye to teammates that they like from the locker room. All that goes into account to a team. So they've been struggling with their run. Messi's arrival is positive. If you look at Messi's Messi, he is a world champion, etc., or whatever you want to say about Messi's resume. But getting Messi and his teammates to get to understand each other and to understand that madness that comes with Messi. Messi is used to it, but these kids that are here and some of the players that are here have never been used to this. I bet Robert Taylor, Leonardo Campana, and even Joseph Martinez, they are not used to all this media attention. You have to see how will they react, because then you're going to start getting negative comments like the team has been getting because they're the worst team in the league. And people are already saying Messi is going to come to play with a bunch of piedras, with a bunch of rocks or something like that. So that is Tata's main job for me in this moment, to get the team comfortable with that change, with that idea, and then to get them used to it, and thirdly, for them to concentrate on a football field. Because if not, if they are not 100% concentrated on that, it's going to be hard for them to perform and to get out of the hole in which they are now.
Right, and that's why in different parts of the world, especially in Latin America, to use the Spanish term, los equipos concentran, right? They go to a hotel before even some home games, definitely for away games, exactly. A night before, so that they can...
You don't get that here in MLS, so...
They do the same in Europe with that, Franco.
Yeah. I just don't know the term in English exactly.
In Italian, it's a ritiro.
Yeah.
But what's the English term? I've always wondered what the English term is, because you can't say like they went to the concentration, because it just doesn't translate. Like concentrado, right? So like in Spanish, it essentially just means you go to the hotel a day or two before the game.
There is no word for it in English. No.
We got to find one. This is the bilingual Inter Miami focused podcast, so we've got to find the word for it, but we don't have to do it right this instant. But anyway, the translation is that the team goes to a hotel a night or two before, so that they can just focus on the game. They're not, at home. They're not dealing with, girlfriends, wives, kids, outside distractions, friends, family. They're just in the hotel. They can't go out. They're just there to talk about and focus on the game. Can they be on their phones and sure and talking to friends and doing all that? Sure. But the main point is to have them in a controlled environment so that they're maybe that's the word. Maybe that's concentración is just a controlled environment. Something along those lines. So I mean, it does happen in MLS in terms of teams leave the day before an away game most of the times because of the travel. But it's not, usually it's not that big of a difference overall, right? This is a steep difference for Inter Miami in terms of what they would get if they se concentran or if they don't, because there's going to be so many things and people pulling at the players and their attention. So, Simon, just your thoughts on how Inter Miami manages this whole thing.
So I totally agree with what Andrea was saying there, that they've got to create that focus and find a way to deal with this. I would actually say that a lot of that comes down to Messi, right? How he is in the locker room. Because if he comes into the locker room and he says, hey guys, and he's one of the guys and he's like encouraging the young players, he's respecting maybe some of the more senior players as well. He's not behaving like a superstar. He's one of the guys, and everyone starts to like him and get to know him. And becomes a teammate, a true teammate of them. Then I think the problem kind of goes away. It certainly makes Tata's job much easier if he does that, right? But if he comes in and he's surrounded by his entourage and he comes in the locker room and he just gets his kit on, goes out and plays the game, and then his entourage reappear and he's out of there and he doesn't hang out with any of the guys, and there's a feeling that there's like, especially with him coming in with a couple of his former boss teammates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You could end up in a situation of there's those 3 guys and there's those 8, so you don't want that. You've got to, and that is on Messi, really. That is on Messi, and he's we'll see what his leadership skills are like, because clearly he had some in the Argentine national team. He's quite a shy, introverted guy in a lot of ways, but I think within that Argentina team, he's shown some leadership. So he's got to take that on and deal with it, I think. And I think that's going to be fundamental, to create that harmony in the team and that focus. And, he can make, if some players are getting frustrated by the amount of attention and talk there is on Messi, he can make light of that. He can make a joke about it in the locker room or something. But if he doesn't deal with it, those kind of things can fester.
So let's keep the show moving. I would like to talk about this topic more, but I think we'll have more opportunity as the next few weeks unfold. Continuing on the Messi topic, he went to dinner on Wednesday night to an Argentine, I believe, restaurant, maybe it's Italian, in North Miami Beach, if I'm not mistaken, and there was some media, select media, and fans waiting for him at the back door, and there's clips of this on social media of him leaving with his family, and I guess you could say swarmed. There he was swarmed. He was swarmed by some people. He even got a kiss on the cheek from one fan who was very excited to see him. He got some hugs.
That is unacceptable.
Selfies. I know, Andrea, you were not happy about that, so go ahead. That's where I was going with it. I just wanted you to get it off your chest, because I know you were none too pleased to see Messi's lack of security detail there.
Yeah. It was very disappointing for me to see. I know it's fun for people to meet their idols, and all of us grew up admiring players and football players, soccer players, however you want to call them. But like, he was with his family, and you see people going to his wife and his 3 kids, and Diego Torres, who was also there. I don't know if Simon knows who Diego Torres is, but he's a famous singer, Argentine too, Latin American singer. I like him very much. Hopefully he goes on Sunday. But you see them, and you see them get swarmed by people without not one security helping them, and then you see Messi get kissed, then get hugged, then get followed to his car. It gave me anxiety, because listen, Messi needs to understand that he's a public figure and he's not in Europe anymore. People in Europe are more civilized, and will respect your space a little bit more than what he's
Will
going
they
to get
though?
here.
Will they? Will they?
Well,
Will
at
they?
least he could go to a supermarket in Paris or in Barcelona. Yes, people
So
ask
I'm
for a
actually gonna,
picture, but they wouldn't
Andrea.
swarm his kids.
Andrea, I'm going to burst your bubble here a little bit because you actually said it perfectly. Like I was ready to jump in and add this here and burst your bubble while you were saying it, and then you said the perfect word, supermarket. So there's an image right now that just came out. I just stumbled across it here on Twitter. It was posted 29 seconds ago.
An hour ago, I saw it an hour ago of him going to Publix. Yeah.
He went to
Publix.
and was.
Oh, come on. Winn-Dixie would have been perfect, man.
Exactly. He's like acting like a Florida man already going to Publix.
Florida man goes to Publix. Listen, look, there's images of him with a bag in a cart at Publix. And then there's a picture of him taking, not a selfie, but taking a picture next to a young lady who is clearly a fan of his. And he looks, he's smiling. He doesn't look uncomfortable. I don't think he looked all too uncomfortable either when he was leaving that restaurant. Now, it wasn't, he wasn't.
No, I know. It's not about him feeling uncomfortable. It's about him. Listen, when players go to the NBA, go to the NFL, and those players, not one, only LeBron is on Messi's level. Not one compares to what Messi is. But every one of those players, I've seen them, gets a security detail and gets a press person that accompanies them or a security detail that is always with them. Like you got Victor Wembanyama, who was the first pick in the draft this year. He's not made his NBA debut, and he has already a full security team. We all saw the Britney drama that happened this weekend with his security team. But Inter Miami need to get on that because Messi is much bigger than anyone. Like I told you, only LeBron compares to them. And you see any celebrity here in Miami, every artist, any celebrity has to have security in Miami.
No, man. I don't know if I agree with that.
It's because of his kids. I know it doesn't bother him of people asking for pictures, but some people will not respect that. And we in Miami has had many stories of many artists and many famous people that have been beaten, even killed, like Versace, because they didn't have security. So Messi and Inter Miami need to take this seriously.
I think that's a bit extreme. I agree that you got to take some precautions, but I don't necessarily agree with that 100%. And look, I think part of these public appearances or not public appearances, whatever you want to call them, I think it's all part of the overall plan, right? Like, Messi could easily have one of his people in his entourage go to Publix on his behalf and pick up groceries. Like, he doesn't have to go to Publix and run that errand. I think it's all part of the show.
Really? I don't know about
absolutely.
I don't know.
He knows he's going to get recognized. He knows people are going to take pictures of him. Like,
I think they really expected for them to be able to go out here and have a quiet life.
No way. I don't envision him at Publix.
For them to go out with their 3 children without any security.
And I don't envision him at Publix making regular Publix runs all the time. No, I just don't see that.
You think that's some PR strategy to make him look like a man of the people? I don't.
Yes.
I think it. Look, if you had any security advisor, never mind the people around them, right? The security advisors who plan these trips for celebrities, right? They're always planned out ahead of time. Okay, we're gonna visit Publix. We're gonna go in. We're gonna have 2 guys go in the supermarket first. We're gonna have 2 guys behind Messi. We're going to have 2 guys staying on the door. This stuff all gets planned out for risk, yeah? Mm-hmm. Andrea's completely right about this because they plan out these things for risk, and they can look sometimes like the celebrities just walking around, but there's actually 3 or 4 people with earpieces hanging around somewhere. And they do that because there is a danger, right? There is a risk. I don't want to dramatize it, but there is in any city, but I would say definitely in Miami there's a risk. And I just wonder if this, we've been just a few of us have been joking about that statement he gave to the Spanish press when he said he was coming, where he said, I want to go out of the spotlight a little bit. I want to, enjoy some family time. And like people were like, oh, yeah, that's going to work out for you, Messi, in Miami, right? You're going to arrive, you're the biggest star to be playing sport in the city, ever, perhaps. Well, we can argue about the LeBron thing, but basically up there, right? And you really expect to have the quiet life. And I thought, no, surely not. Maybe that was just a line for the Spanish media or something. But this kind of stuff makes me wonder: does he really think that? Does he really think he can just have like a quiet, normal life here? Because I don't think he can, to be honest. Unfortunately, it'd be lovely if he could, but.
I agree with you that I don't think he can, but I still would say that I think part of this is just strategy to get his face out there in the public. He's here. He's out and about. I don't think we'll see this after another 2-3 weeks. I think it's just part of me. This is not inside information, just my sensation, my supposition. I think it's all part of the plan. Who's to say that some of those Argentina fans with the Albiceleste jersey on aren't in on it, right? Who's to say that?
No, Franco, I've been around many players in the NBA, NFL, and many celebrities working, and no security will let anyone get near your children like they did with Messi's children yesterday. Absolutely. In that parking 100%. Lot. There was no security there, and that gave me anxiety because I've been in events that presidents have been there, celebrities, everything. And the security is something serious, especially in a city as Miami. So hopefully, if Messi doesn't like to have security, maybe the team can intervene, like I'm telling you, NBA and NFL do. Because, listen, for an example, I cover the Dolphins, and Tua doesn't go anywhere without a security on him all the time. And Inter Miami cannot permit Messi, like when you're going out to the public, right, where you're going to be followed. So Inter Miami cannot let Messi do that. They need to take care of him, and they need to take care of the security, not only in the stadium, but his general security.
Okay. I mean, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you guys to an extent, but...
No, you do.
I mean, I just don't think that it's just he was just as unprotected as you guys are making out to. I think there's definitely something behind it. Like
he was even driving. Imagine that, he was even driving. I mean, he's not even a driver.
He's driven in other places in the world. Like again, when he was in Rosario not too long ago, he was riding his bike, and there were images of that, and he waves at the camera. Like I agree with you guys to an extent, but not fully. Not fully. But anyway, all right, let's keep it moving because we still haven't even talked about Sunday. This coming Sunday is when he will formally be presented as an Inter Miami player to fans, to media, in an event that I have heard some people describe as sort of like a Super Bowl halftime show. Like that's what Inter Miami is going for. There's going to be celebrities, there's going to be musicians, there's going to be entertainment. I will reiterate what I reported earlier this week, but I will clarify so that there's no confusion that I had heard Inter Miami was trying, keyword trying, to line up the likes of Shakira, Maluma, and yes, Bad Bunny. They were trying. Now that doesn't mean that they finalized that and they got that over the line and that those three are performing on Sunday. Inter Miami was trying. Now, we'll see who they actually bring out. We'll see who actually performs. No details have been publicly announced. We're recording the show on Thursday, so I imagine Friday we're going to get some details. I know fans are going to start getting news about their tickets.
They were getting tickets today.
Okay.
I got some messages of people complaining because they were not given their usual tickets.
Okay, so I heard that Friday there will be some tickets. There will be information with regards to parking, and I imagine on Friday we'll hear more about what we can expect, or what more we can expect out of Sunday's unveiling at DRV PNK Stadium in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. What do you guys expect? Very quickly. We still have to talk about some games, but very quickly, what do you think Sunday is going to be like? Simon?
I think it's going to be interesting, but I think it's just a hype event, isn't it? Right. So I don't expect to hear a lot of words from Messi. I don't think he'll make a big speech. I think it'll all be big build-up until he goes onto the stage, which will happen quite late in the event, I would imagine. And people are going to be screaming and cheering, and it's all going to be hype. I don't expect, from our point of view, we're going to get much in the way of like material from Messi talking about what he wants to do or or Tata giving his views on it or anything. It's going to be, you know, Jorge Martin and Beckham, I would imagine, like really enjoying being in front of the crowd and enjoying their moment. Fans, you know, showing what it all means to them. It's going to be fun, you know. I think it's going to be fine, you know, and you know, there'll be some memes come out of it, I'm sure, of something. But actually, the Shakira thing, like, am I like totally like missing something here? But isn't there like some awkward thing with her and like a Barcelona teammate? Like, is that?
I mean,
Is
a
that
Well,
Barcelona teammate is
it
not.
was talked that that Antonella, Messi's wife, didn't like Piqué, and that's why she was liking all Shakira's songs and everything after
Look
the
at
break.
this. Look at this. Miami Total Futbol Radio has turned into Miami Total Futbol Farandula because we are just talking about gossip and celebrities. Like, honestly, like, I joke, but like, really, this is
Welcome
part
to
of
Like
the
it.
world.
seriously,
This
is
Franco,
whole
like
part of
you
it, yes.
think we're not getting El Gordo y la Flaca on Saturday on Sunday? Of course they're gonna be in the stadium, man. Please.
I mean, there's definitely that element to it for sure, 100%. It's unavoidable. It's unavoidable.
I
mean,
agree with Simon. It's just a hype event.
It's a
not-
pep rally. It's a pep rally.
It's a pep rally, and yeah, it's just high. It's not like an unveiling, a presentation like you usually do, but because, like, for example, when Real Madrid presented Cristiano Ronaldo in their stadium, they filled it in with 80,000 people, but Cristiano talked there, and after he went and sat in the press conference to talk with everyone. It was not just the show. So he answered questions from the media. He had his time with the public and everything. But here we are getting the press conference until the next day, and he's training until the next day. So when that was announced, I really knew that Sunday was just something for the fans and for them to enjoy and for people to notice Messi coming to Miami.
It's going to be a circus, right? It's just going to be for you to sit there and be entertained and see Messi. He probably will do a speech. Busquets is also expected to be in attendance. Jordi Alba is up in the air, and it sounds like maybe not because his wife is expecting a child any day now. So, or his partner's expecting a child any day now. Not sure if it's his wife or his girlfriend. But nonetheless, it's just going to be a show. And like you said, Andrea, we will not be speaking to him directly. There's a press conference scheduled for Monday. That's when we will be able to speak to him. Don't know where yet. Those details haven't been given to us just yet, but that will take place on Monday. And then Tuesday, I imagine he will train with the team in some capacity for the first time because we have been invited as media to go cover a special or historic, and I'm using the quotation mark.
Major training.
A major, there it is. Major. Thank you, Simon. Thanks for the assist. A major training session on Tuesday. on Tuesday.
Who could it be?
On Tuesday morning.
Who knows, right? But one thing I'm happy of is that we're finally going to stop with those awful Photoshop pictures of Messi in an Inter Miami shirt. Yeah. Please make them stop. If I see another Photoshop photo of Messi smiling, bad Photoshop of Messi smiling with an Inter Miami shirt in South Beach, I'm going to go crazy. So that is one positive thing about Sunday, that we're going to see him with a shirt and people are going to finally be able to buy his shirt.
Absolutely. That is absolutely one of the things we need to touch on here, because on Tuesday, when I was outside of DraftKings Stadium, again with Messias 305 and other fans from other supporters groups, and just other soccer, football fans in general, I caught a glimpse, and I did take video, and this is up on Miami Total Football's YouTube page. It's a very quick video, less than a minute long, but you can see it there. I caught a glimpse of the Messi jersey at long last. Officially, the real Messi jerseys. The team store was preparing for Sunday, and the employees there, they're taking boxes into the store, and the windows are tinted, but you can see just enough of the La Noche, the black jersey, with the pink lettering, and you see Messi and the 10 there for a brief moment. Inter Miami has also since then put out an image of it, of what the jersey looks like from behind with the 10 and Messi. Expect them to go on sale on Sunday. I expect them to fly off the shelves because it's something that everybody wants to get their hands on. I expect both. We are going to video. I'm thinking of getting a pink Messi one and a black Messi one to put as the background for when we move over to a video podcast in the near future. Hopefully as soon as next week.
Right now, I'm not changing my background. My background is a shirt by one of the best Honduran players of all time that played in England. Simon will know him, I know.
Is it Romel Kyoto? I was going to say, if it's not Romel Kyoto, all the listeners are going to be very disappointed.
No, it's not Romel Kyoto. I'm talking about real football players that were good and
took Honduras to World Did you just Cup. Diss your boy like that? Wow, I never thought I would hear that.
I am mad right now with Romel Kyoto, but that is a topic for another day. I will not bring my Wilson Palacios shirt down for a Messi shirt. So
Wilson.
With letting people, I knew Simon will know who Wilson is, so I'm not getting my Wilson Palacios shirt unless I get a David Ruiz one, maybe. I'm joking.
So I mean, listen, Sunday's going to be a show. We'll see how it goes. We'll
let me tell you something. We've been recording, but I've gotten messages from people sending me articles about what Messi bought in Publix. Nice. Imagine that. Nice. Imagine having that job of having to analyze a picture.
Did he go for the chicken tender sub, though? That's the big question.
That is the real question, because you are not a Florida man or woman until you go in line to a Publix and get a chicken tender sub. So hopefully Messi tried that delicacy.
This show is not sponsored to you by Publix, at least not yet. So Publix, if you're out there and you're listening, you're more than welcome to sponsor us, as we are still looking for our first sponsor, which may be coming soon.
Messi Burger. We could have the Messi Burger as the sponsor.
At Hard Rock, yep. There's a lot of things going on right now. I mean, there's murals. I know Andrea and Jose went to some earlier today. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on with Messi here in Miami. It is, as Simon was saying, I think the only thing comparable is when LeBron was here, and not even LeBron I think can compare to what I'm seeing with Messi. Is like people are really, really, really excited. We were in the murals today in Wynwood, and there are a couple of them, but every one of them were full of people taking pictures, people getting out of their cars, people making traffic in their cars trying to get pictures of the Messi's murals. It was very interesting to see. So, and I saw people from a lot of places in the world, even one from Brazil that was wearing their Brazil jersey, but was with his family trying to get a picture in the Messi mural. So it really opens your eyes to see what Messi really means for people here. So hopefully people get to enjoy him, and it all turns out well for him on the field, not only on the marketing side, because as Simon says, the first thing he did when he got off the plane was not sign the contract, but unveil his new burger.
Well, maybe he did sign it. We're just waiting for the official image from Inter Miami. It's all orchestrated. This is all orchestrated. This is all carefully thought out and planned. Now, something else that needs to be talked about Sunday very quickly is something that a lot of people are asking and inquiring about, and that's tickets. So, if you're a season ticket holder, you're going to get tickets to this event. Inter Miami said there may be tickets for sale for more afterwards, but nothing new has come of that. If there are, it's going to be a very limited amount. I imagine a lot of tickets are going to family and friends of people that work in and for the club, for players and their friends and families, for corporate sponsors, for the artists, for the athletes, for the celebrities. Like, a lot of the tickets that might otherwise go to the average Inter Miami fan, a lot of that's going to be taken up by other people that want to catch a glimpse of Messi. Just part of the equation, part of the whole thing. All right, let's move on from Messi talk very quickly to this past weekend's game. And again, we won't dive a whole lot into it, not because it's not deserving of it, but because we've gone long here, and because this is still a transition, and the team's going to look a whole lot different in a couple weeks' time, or at least a good bit different. So Inter Miami took to the road at Audi Field in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, to play D.C. United. And Inter Miami got another point, a third straight draw, but a 10th consecutive match without a victory in MLS play. It was a 2-2 stalemate. Benjamin Kremaski scored the opener in the 59th minute. That was followed up by a Taxi Fontas equalizer in the 65th. Noah Allen then put Inter Miami ahead with a free kick in the 68th before Nigel Roberta tied it up in the 77th. That was all she wrote. It was a 2-2 draw once again. This was Inter Miami's starting lineup in what was Javi Morales' final game as interim head coach of the South Florida side. Drake Callender in goal. There was a back five of Benjamin Kremaski, Ian Frey, Serhi Christoph, Noah Allen, and Robert Taylor. The first line in the midfield, David Ruiz and Dixon Arroyo. Then you had ahead of them Nicolas Stefanelli and Rodolfo Pizarro. Up top by himself, Joseph Martinez. There's a lot of little bullet points we can talk about. One of them being that Nicolas Stefanelli left the game with an injury. Doesn't look as serious as the injuries that Franco Negri and Corentin John recently suffered, but he was stretchered off in this one. He tried to play through it initially. He thought he could, and then he just couldn't, so he went back down, and he was subbed out. Another injury. The injury bug keeps taking bites out of the South Florida side. This was also probably, very likely, Rodolfo Pizarro's final game in an Inter Miami jersey. We had the very candid interview with him last week, but he still played in this one. Reports are that he's going to Athens. He's going to go play for his former coach in Matias Almeida, who also had some time in MLS as the San Jose Earthquakes manager. He'll go play at AEK Athens shortly after agreeing to mutual rip-up of the contract. So it's not a buyout, from what reports are saying. Pizarro will be agreeing to part ways with Inter Miami mutually. So with regard to the game, I think, the biggest, at least from an analytical standpoint, besides the fact that the team continues to fight, continues to push, despite, having an uncertain future, despite being a team that's bitten by the injury bug, is that the Inter Miami played with another back five, but they played in a high line. And at times, it worked really well. They made it very difficult for DC United to build out. At other times, with some very quick passing, DC United exposed them tremendously. I think, the first DC United leveler from Taxi Fontas, I think that was a clear-cut example of Inter Miami just getting, taken apart far too easily because they were pressing high, and there was a lot of spaces in behind, and they just got too stretched in terms of their defensive posture. Now, from what I've heard from sources, this was a direct instruction from Tata Martino, who was in the house. He wasn't coaching just yet, but he was in the stadium with his staff watching from the stands or from a suite. So, direct instruction. So that, to me, says that Inter Miami, when they get their new pieces, when they continue to mold this roster around Messi, they're going to play with a high line. At least that's going to be the initial attempt. Anyway, Andrea, very quickly, your thoughts or your biggest analysis point from this match.
Well, I think the positive thing from this match was the youngsters performing, getting their goals. Benjamin Kremaski was looking for his goal in games past, and I'm glad he got it. And for Noah Allen to get back with a goal really made me happy, especially because I don't really like Noah Allen playing as a defender. I really think Noah Allen could be a good player in attack, and I really like seeing him score. And hopefully we see more from him. I also like that Javi gave opportunities to Israel Boatwright, and he got an opportunity to play with the first team in 2 games with Javier Morales, and also to Edison Ascona, because he gave him the possibility to come in 2 games, and in the match before he was involved in Joseph Martinez's goal. So I think that's a positive thing. And also, one little comment that I wanted to touch on this, that I don't think it's talked about much, is in this game, for me, the biggest news was the celebration that Fontas did, pointing to Inter Miami and calling them crybabies. So that was really something to see, and I wish that Yenlin was not with the national team just to see him respond to that. So I wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, I definitely think, listen, if this was any other time, that would be a massive talking point. I actually spoke to someone earlier today about that very thing. someone that's in and around Inter Miami. If it wasn't for all the Messi hoopla, that celebration that Fontas did after scoring, again, the first equalizer, would be a massive talking point. And the reason for that is because when Inter Miami played at DC United last year, if you don't remember, or if you do remember, I'll just bring it up to refreshen. And there were allegedly racist remarks from Taxi Fontas, according to DeAndre Yedlin and Damian Losed. I think Amin Mabika was also involved in the allegations that Taxi Fontas made a racist remark. Now, those were never proven to be true, like by the MLS and by the investigation that the league did. So when you see Fontas do that celebration, clearly there's more to it behind it, right? Like it has to do with that incident. It has to do with, because he said he didn't say anything, right? His version was that he didn't say anything racist. And again, based on MLS's investigation, nothing came of it. They didn't find anything to corroborate the allegations. So any other time, that Taxi Fontas celebration is talked about a lot more. And maybe there's going to be a rivalry and bad blood brewing between, at least Taxi and some of the Inter Miami players going into next season. Because, listen, if DeAndre Yedlin comes back next year, I can't imagine he's going to take too kindly after seeing that image. I'm sure he watched the game. I'm sure he's, he heard about it. So I'm sure he's not going to be too happy about that. But anyway, moving on. I mean, definitely Taxi Fontas is making himself a villain with regards to Inter Miami. But moving on, like Andrea, like you said, positives were that Benjamin Kremaski and Noah Allen got their first goals, that the young players continue to get minutes. I believe 6 homegrown/academy players finished playing in this game. They were on the field, and there's a really cool picture. Although they're not all too happy because they gave away 2 different leads, but the 6 youngsters are all standing together there on the field, and they pose for a picture. The most academy players or homegrown players to step on the field in a given match in Inter Miami history. So a pretty neat moment, but also one that shows just where Inter Miami is right now. Like if they're counting on 6 youngsters to play heavy minutes in a game, it's because they're that depleted overall. I do want to ask you, Simon, the Englishman, about this English-related question. Israel Boatwright played in this game, like Andrea mentioned, at right wing back when Inter Miami had to make the change for Stefanelli because they moved a lot of pieces around. He's not signed to a first-team deal. Harvey Neville is signed to a first-team deal, and he did not enter the game to play in what would have been a very natural position for him. What do you think that says about Harvey Neville's standing with the team? He was on the bench.
I mean, I think it's pretty sad if that's the case. I think that's pretty bad form if that's the case. I mean, the kid is under contract. He's training. He's been doing his thing. Is there any other reason that could be given other than they think it's awkward to have him on the field or something? I mean, I'm just asking the question. Is a fair question. I don't know. No,
of course we don't have a concrete answer.
It doesn't help also when your father goes on Twitter and begins retweeting negative things about your teammates. So I guess that doesn't help either.
Did Phil retweet stuff?
Yeah, didn't you see?
No.
Everyone talking about Pizarro.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So clearly Phil must have caught wind of the interview Rodolfo did with us.
Exactly.
And
that's what I thought.
Happy.
I thought that you had noticed that he retweeted.
No.
He retweeted like 4 negative comments about Pizarro, talking bad about Pizarro, and that.
Really? I was completely unaware of that.
I guess that for Harvey, when Phil left, I was asking the play. I had a media availability with Ian Frey. When those past times years ago, when you could have an Inter Miami player just for yourself.
I only see one so far. I'm only seeing one so far, and it's one that is it's a tweet criticizing Pizarro and his performance, and then it's Taylor Toelman quote tweeting that tweet and saying 16 million for him with like an emoji with the eyes all big, like really. And Phil Neville retweeted that. That's the only tweet that I'm seeing right now that's on Phil Neville's feed as of today, Thursday.
But even if.
But I don't know
From a
what that has to do
professional
with.
point.
I don't know what that has to do with Harvey Neville though.
Well, that's it. I mean, if they're not comfortable having him around the team for some reason,
But
and I'm
he's
not
on the
saying that they
bench.
are,
But he's
but
on the bench, so he's an
well,
option.
exactly that's my point. If you're going to freeze the guy out, freeze the guy out. But having him training with the team, going on the bench. I mean, look who was on that bench. There weren't many options there. It's down to total bare bones, isn't it? I mean,
I
Lawson,
think Harvey Neville's
Sunderland.
time in Inter Miami might be coming to an end because if he's not making an appearance while he's in uniform, and someone that, in theory, in terms of the roster designation and where they stand in the pecking order, they play for the second team is ahead of him, getting into games ahead of him, then I don't think Harvey Neville is long for Inter Miami.
Yeah,
That's
but
just
be
my
professional about it, one way or the other. I mean, I'd tell the guy straight, look, your dad's gone, you're going to be going at the end of the season, so go and train with the youth team and so on. Don't take him along, put him on the bench, and then play everyone in front of him. Like, just do it professionally.
Yeah,
If
I agree with that. I agree with that.
We'll quickly just go to Inter Miami's weekend game away on the road to St. Louis City SC, the expansion side. Game's at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. It's at City Park in St. Louis, Missouri. It's Inter Miami, the last place team in the Eastern Conference, versus the first place team in the Western Conference. I don't know how St. Louis has done what they've done in year one, because I don't think anybody besides St. Louis fans had them there, even if they had them there. It's a massive, monumental task for an Inter Miami team that still, yes, they will have Tata Martino leading the way. This will be his first game as an Inter Miami head coach, where he manages from the sideline. But the roster is still very much the same as it was a week ago. It's still very depleted. The reinforcements have not yet arrived. So, Simon, back to you. What kind of game should we expect from Inter Miami in this one? And before you answer that, this is St. Louis City's record. They have 12 wins, 2 draws, 8 losses. They've scored 40 goals and given up 27. So, Simon, what kind of game should we expect for Inter Miami?
A really, really tough game. I mean, they just lost 3-0 at LAFC. They didn't really have all their top players out on the field in that game. I'm not sure if some were missing suspensions or some players rested or some injuries, but either way, they're going to be smarting a little bit from that defeat. And they're a good team. They're not, forget about expansion. Yeah, technically they're an expansion team, but from the first game, I saw quite a lot of their games in the first sort of 4 or 5 weeks of the season. You could tell that they've been preparing for months for that moment. The team are really good together, really well coached team. It's going to be tough. They're one of the best teams in MLS. It's not a new team that's finding its way in the league like we often see. It's a team that's ready with good players recruited from around the world and a really good coach. So it's going to be a really, really tough one. If Miami can come out of this one with another draw, this would be the most creditable draw they've got in this little run they've been on.
Andrea, we'll change the question for you, but I know you remember the preseason game that we saw between Inter Miami and St. Louis City SC, where former Inter Miami player Indiana Vasilev scored a heck of a free kick goal from distance. So he'll be rooting for St. Louis City in that one, whether he steps on the field or not. Nonetheless, Andrea, I think that one ended 4-0, right? If I'm not mistaken. But anyway, nonetheless, what is the key to the game for Inter Miami in this one? Because, I mean, if last week was anything to go by, they're going to look to play a high line. They're going to look to be aggressive without the ball as well as with the ball when they do have it. What is the key to the game for Inter Miami, assuming that they take an attacking posture?
Well, Franco, I really think that this game, as I agree with what Simon said, this game is the most difficult one that they had in this last matches. St. Louis is a good team. I don't think Miami can play that style if they want to win that game. I think, I guess by now Tata has analyzed the way St. Louis plays, and we'll have to make a decision. Kamal Miller is back, so I don't think we're gonna see the same tactics. I think we're going to go back to a back four with Kamal Miller and Sergi Cristo to bring more balance for the defense. The young guys did well, but with Miller here, there is no way that I would keep him on the bench, especially with a team like St. Louis. And I think that is the key for me. I don't think that they can play like that with like they did against DC United, and they tried to do before with St. Louis, because that is a team that will make them pay. A team that will make them pay for their mistakes, like DC United did easily to get the tie in the last match. So for me, the key to this game is to get Kamal Miller back in the defense.
DeAndre Yedlin might also be available for this one because the U.S. men's national team got eliminated from the Gold Cup, surprisingly, there in the semifinals at the hands of Panama via penalty kicks. They were eliminated. Officially, that's a draw. The U.S. didn't lose in the Gold Cup, but they were eliminated via penalty kick defeat. Inside joke for long-time listeners. Although it's true. So look, for me, there's a possibility he could be in the lineup. Depends on if Tata Martino is okay with him only getting maybe 1 to 2 sessions in at most before the weekend game. Maybe not.
I think he's ready. He will be ready because he played the last minutes of the match and extra time. So I think he'll be ready to play.
From a physical standpoint, right. But does Tata Martino, from a tactical standpoint, want to play someone that hasn't been around for the week to prepare for his first game?
With what you have available, I would play Yedlin. Knowing Tata, if Yedlin is good physically, I think he will play him because the young guys did well, but
you could
they are not at Yedlin's level.
But you could go, right? You could go, right? Robert Taylor and Noah Allen as your wing backs, and you go with a center back 3 of Ian Frey, Serhii Kristoff, and the returning Kamal Miller. You could do that, right? So you don't necessarily need to start DeAndre Yedlin, especially if you take into account his defensive performances, right? Like, he hasn't been overly convincing this year, and neither has a lot of Inter Miami players. But anyway, with regards to the lineup, I think you see the back 5 again. I think you see the back 5 I just gave you. I don't think Yedlin starts. Drake Callender in goal. Arroyo and Ruiz are once again that first line of the midfield. Stefanelli's probably out. Pizarro is, we haven't had an official announcement yet. He did post on Instagram like a black screen with like his hands together, like praying thank you. So it sounds like that announcement is forthcoming. So you have to change those 2 more advanced midfielders on the second line. I think you'll see Benjamin Kremaski and maybe Edison Ascona, maybe. And then up top, you'll probably see Joseph Martinez again in front of Leo Campana. I think that's what's going to be the starting lineup. Unless, am I missing somebody in the midfield that could also play ahead of Ascona? Andrea, anybody else? Am I blanking?
I would play DeAndre Yedlin in his position and then get Robert Taylor in the midfield.
But I don't think they'll play with Robert Taylor centrally. Like, if they're going back 5, the width's coming from the back 5. I don't think they're going to have, a line of flat 4 ahead of them. But anyway, we'll see what Tata Martino does in his first game. It'll be interesting for sure. It's kind of been an afterthought and less of a talking point because of all the Messi madness, Messi mania. But nonetheless, it'll be something to dissect, discuss, and analyze on Saturday and next week. So we'll leave it there for the first segment. We have to come back for a very quick Q&A session, and our final thoughts, we'll do that after this. Quick Q&A, and it's because we've gone long. All right, so I'm going to give one to each of you, and that's it. Just one response for each of you. First one comes from Carlos Moreno. There are plenty of tickets left to both Leagues Cup games. I know tickets have been released periodically to control demand and pricing, but you'd still think it would be sold out by now. Did we overestimate the demand? Simon.
That is surprising. I mean, all we've been reading about is stories saying like how tickets have gone crazy and the prices are through the roof, and there's still tickets available for next Friday against Cruz Azul.
I think one of the things is that it's not certain for sure that he's going to play, and if he does play, how long he's going to play. Right? Like, he's not going to have a starting role. I can't imagine he's going to have a starting role if he's just fresh off of vacation and doing rondos as of, today, from what sources told me. So I think there's some element of play there. I think it's also the fact that he hasn't been formally announced and you haven't seen him with the jersey on. I think once the end of this week and Sunday and then next Monday and Tuesday happen, and there's a lot more, there are a lot more images in the media of Messi in the jersey training, and a lot more talk, a lot more conversation, then I think they'll sell out. I think at that point it'll kick up.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's still surprising that it hasn't done already, because, like I say, there's been so many stories about these are the hardest tickets to get in the world, and and suddenly they're not.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, again,
that is surprising.
It's again some you gotta. And I'm not saying you guys, just in general, for the listeners and for everyone. You gotta decipher what's fact and what's fiction sometimes, because some of the stuff that comes out is PR talk. PR talk. All right, last one. We'll go to Jack. That's just his name, Jack. I think he's a first-time asker. Hey guys, I'm sure you've heard about this new fan group called the Messiahs. What do you guys think about them, and how do you think the other fan groups feel about them? I personally think they're a disgrace. So we talked about this earlier in the podcast. Andrea, this one's for you. I know, again, we already mentioned them and the overall sentiment. But this is an example of what we talked about earlier in the pod, right? Like, this is, there is that sentiment, not only from other fans around the world, and especially in MLS, but even from within the Inter Miami fan base. So just to elaborate there on what you think.
It's a sentiment that many Inter Miami fans have said to me, have told me, because they are really not happy. Because listen, the goal to bring Messi for them as the fans, what I've been told, the goal for them bringing Messi is to make Inter Miami a winning team, something that they have not been, and it's a failure for them. It's considered a failure until here, because the team has not won anything, has not been competing to win anything, and they see Messi just as a piece for that, because they are real. Messi is at the end of his career, and they know that if they get something, it's going to help the team, not just him. But for some people to come, I guess the fans can feel that way. For some people to come and say, I don't care if the team loses or if the team is beaten 7-0, I just came here to see Messi. I understand for them to feel bad. And I understand if the supporters group don't want that unofficial supporter group on that section, or for them to be part of La Familia. Some may say like, oh, that is unfair because it should be open for everyone. I get that too, but you really can compare people that have been here since day one and trying to get this team up and going to the stadium even when no one goes. We saw US Open Cup games with 100 people, and those 100 people were from La Familia. So I really understand their point of view, and I really hope that for the league this isn't what gets attention, because it just looks bad. Like, can you imagine someone even here in America, in the rest of America, like no one in Honduras will go and say, oh, just this player, I prefer this player than the whole team. So
that's because Honduras isn't getting Lionel Messi. That's why.
Well, yeah, whoever goes, because no one is bigger than the club. That is.
Can you imagine if the Miami Heat fans there'd been a LeBron supporters section?
I mean, the Miami Heat don't have supporters groups, but like you can't tell me that a lot of people didn't just start turning out because LeBron was there.
Yeah, but
they cheered for Miami Heat. They cared about that team winning a championship.
Exactly.
I mean, again, it's a different
you
sport.
Got tourists, like every team in the world. You got tourists, but listen, when players leave, I've seen Thierry leave Arsenal, and Arsenal moved on. I saw him come back, and that doesn't mean that he was bigger than the team or that he was.
If Messi leaves, it's not like Inter Miami's going to cease to exist. But look,
exactly.
I mean, I'll say this because you guys just touched on the LeBron comparison. I have plenty of friends and conocidos, like, acquaintances, that they tuned in. They were like, I would say they got Heat jerseys and stuff when LeBron was here. And then when he left, they just switched gears and took their attention elsewhere. I mean, it happens. It happens.
Yeah, but that can happen in the NBA, Franco. But in football, if you do that, the club is going to die in a couple of years.
No
and with
way,
the president
no
that
way.
South Florida has, then that is not beneficial in the long run for the team.
I'm curious to see what Inter Miami does, right? Like how they embrace Messiahs 305, if they do embrace them at all. Do they allow them to come into the supporters group, or do they have to have real talks before that happens, or do they not let that happen at all? Curious to see what happens. But let's leave it there for the Q&A session. Do either of you have a final thought before we wrap up the show? We've been talking for a while. I will take that as a no. So I will give one final thought, and it's only because I have to do some shameless plugging here. I made my debut with Bola VIP in Argentina. It's an Argentine outlet. I am writing in Spanish now as well. So for the first time in my career, I've written a Spanish article, and there will be many more to come.
Well done.
So just check it out if you can. If you can't read it like Simon, well then use Google Translate.
Thanks for that tip. I never thought of that, Franco. Thank you. Yeah.
Congrats.
I can read Spanish, football Spanish. I speak Italian, so I can read football Spanish in newspapers.
Okay.
It's not that different.
Okay. All right, listen, my
So
first
now
article...
that you said that, Simon, I'm gonna, when Alejandro Nesta was here, he said, oh, I don't speak Spanish. And I told him, oh, you speak Italian, so you understand what I'm saying. So now I'm gonna speak to you in Spanish.
Yeah. Well, I can follow it a little bit, but speaking it is a different thing, because I end up speaking Italian and putting S on the end of words, and it doesn't really work. That no.
So very quickly, follow my work at Bola VIP. Again, it's in Spanish, so if you can understand Spanish, it's the place to be. Ahí estoy escribiendo en español por la primera vez en mi carrera. Gracias a Bola VIP por la oportunidad. For you guys, you two. Before I let you go, my first article was on who will be the number 9 that plays alongside Messi once he's available. And of course, the two options are Josef Martinez and Leo Campana. Very quickly, who do you guys think will be the starting number 9 alongside Leo Messi? Now, who do you think will be the starting number 9? Simon, quickly.
I would say they will start with Martinez, but then Campana becomes the long-term partner, or medium-term.
I like the answer and the way you formulated it. Andrea.
I could see that happening too, but I think for Inter Miami's own good, I think they're gonna go with Leonardo Campana, who has a contract for more years with the team.
Shocking. I disagree with Andrea and Simon. You and I did a lot of agreeing on your first appearance. I agree with you here. I think Tata's more familiar with Josef Martinez. We've seen Josef Martinez start the majority of the games that Javi Morales was the interim head coach. I think Josef Martinez will be looked at as the preferred option initially, but I agree with Simon. I think ultimately his overall lack of form and Campana's better level at this present moment, I think Campana will end up being the number 9 that starts with Messi, but I do think it starts with Josef. Anyway, that does it for this week's show. It was a jam-packed one. A lot of Messi talk. We'll be back next week for even more Messi talk, because we've got a presentation, we've got a press conference, and we've got a major training session to cover. So, for Simon Evans, for Andrea Yanez, I am Franco Panizo. You have been listening to Miami Total Football Radio. Talk to you guys again